But with all these dumb decisions, I have two that are probably, or one more that probably is the worst decision I've made in my life. 18 years old. Never skateboarded before in my life. I get a call from my friends, hey, let's go skateboarding. All right, sounds good. Never done it before. We're skateboarding behind a go-kart with a ski rope. That sounds great. You don't have to generate any energy. You don't have to pay, nothing. The go-kart does it all for you. So, never skateboarded before in my life. None of us have a helmet. None of us have anything except for the skateboard. I hop on, I grab the ski rope, and the go-kart takes off. The next thing I know, I wake up in a car with a towel wrapped around my head and blood everywhere. So I asked my friend, Daryl, what happened? Well, you kind of fell and you tried to get over the grass, but you hit the concrete 4 or 5 times as you rolled. So I pass out again. Okay. I wake up 10, 15 minutes later, asking him again what happened, and he tells me the story again. So I think, head injury, there's got to be something wrong. So I start reciting everything I know, locker combinations, school schedule, just to make sure that I haven't lost my mind, nothing like that. But for about 2.5 weeks, I lay on the couch, I miss a week of school, go to the bathroom time and time again, because you know what happens when you have concussions. It somehow causes the stomach to reject any food that's been eaten. So I spend 2 weeks with a concussion laying on a couch because of a dumb decision. Yet of all these decisions I tell you about, the dumbest decision that I've ever made was the moment that I chose to surrender my life to Christ fully. Now, if you're listening, you're probably worried about what I'm going to say from this point on, because if I just told you my dumbest decision was surrendering my life to Christ, that's probably not the best thing to hear on Easter morning. But the dumbest decision I made was the moment that I chose to surrender my life to Christ. And that's because I was 19 years old. It was a summer after I'd graduated high school and we were on a missions trip. I lived 18 and a half years in the youth group, or in church. I lived almost 8, 9 years in the youth group. Every week, I was at church 3 days a week. I was in leadership positions. I got opportunities to lead worship in youth group and in church, to go on missions trips around the country, around the world, doing music ministry, sharing my faith with people that I never met before. And I didn't have what I understand now as a relationship with Christ. I was 19 years old when I gave my life to Christ. And that sounds like a wonderful thing, except I look back at all the dumb decisions, not the dumb decisions like this, but all the dumb spiritual decisions that I made, all the scars that I even still have today spiritually, all the things that I still deal with today because it took me so long to accept Christ, to fully accept Christ, to fully give my life. And when I say accept Christ, I don't mean praying one day at an altar or praying in my room one night. I mean daily waking up deciding that everything I do today is going to either impact negatively or positively my relationship with God and those around me, their knowledge of God. So, of all the dumb decisions, the worst decision I made was waiting so long to fully sell out to God, to fully give everything I had to God because of everything that I missed before that. The moments of grace and mercy that passed me by because I wasn't in tune with the Spirit, that because I wasn't listening, I didn't hear what God had to say to me. I didn't experience what God had for me for all those years. Jesus numerous times even had to ask himself when talking to the disciples, how long am I going to have to continue to be with you people before you understand what I'm saying and what I'm doing? The disciples who couldn't cast out demons. And Jesus came down and in one move of his hand, in one spoken word, the demons left. And he kept saying, because the disciples, those who walked closest with Christ, still on a daily basis missed it. And when we find Jesus and Peter encounter after the death, what's Peter doing? Peter's fishing again. Christ had called him from being a fisherman to being a fisher of men, and Peter goes back to being a fisherman. Peter was, as we had heard, was so distraught and had not realized what was about to happen that he had gone back to where he was. The disciples had missed it so many times. The disciples had missed what God had for them. So finally, when Peter did get real, when Peter encountered Christ and gave his life fully to God, he impacted the world in an incredible way for the gospel. Peter, the other disciples, they went out and they did magnificent things. So I told you some of the decisions that I made, and hopefully you saw those decisions as bad decisions, and you learned. And hopefully you knew in advance it's not good to mix fire with plastic army men. It's not good to mix steak knives with 5-year-olds and carrots. It's never good to shoot your friend with a bow and arrow. If you don't know anything about gator hunting, Leave it to those guys on TV. All of those decisions are still pale in comparison to the fact that I went around 18, 19 years before really experiencing what God had for me. So I ask you today, can you say that you've made the greatest decision in your life to sell out to a life that God has for you? Or can you identify with the 18-year-old me that's still saying, you know what, I've got time. You know what, I'm doing a good job. You know what, I understand God. You know what, I like God. Are you the one who makes that foolish decision daily to keep God at arm's length? On this Easter morning, on the day that we celebrate the resurrection of Christ, there's no greater day than to understand, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to stop doing half-heartedly what God wants me to do wholeheartedly.